Hey guys, welcome to another flipping guide, and in this one, we're going to be going over our 2-account flipping guide and the benefits of actually flipping on 2 accounts at once, and why flipping on 2 accounts is so much better than just flipping on one. We popped a bond over onto our alt account to get him into a members world just for this guide specifically, so I hope you do enjoy it, and if you do, be sure to drop a like. I think you guys are really going to like this one, as it's one of my most frequently asked questions on my live streams. We're over at the Grand Exchange, ready to get the session started, but before we do, I know someone is going to ask, how much money should I put on the alt account to flip with compared to my main account? And what I would personally recommend is splitting your cash stack in half and then giving half of it to the alt account, so that way both accounts have the same amount of money. In this guide today though, I have 537 million GP on the alt account, as you can see right here, and on the main account we have pretty much a billion GP, almost 1.1 bill. The reason I'm doing that is because honestly, 500 mil is a significant amount of money. We should be able to hit every item that I'd like to flip today with that amount, and I usually like to keep a little bit more money on my main account, so that way I can flip some higher margin items while also capitalizing on some of that higher volume stuff that the alt account would be able to do. Flipping on one account and flipping on 2 accounts really starts the same way. What you're trying to do is flip a bunch of items and hunt some good margins. That way you know what's going to be the most profitable for you. Except the only difference is you're going to share any good margin that you find across both accounts. As you can see in this example here, we have the Diamond Dragon Bolts E listed for 979 GP each. I did a margin check on them and realized that they were trading over a 10 GP margin, and in my opinion that was really good for this high volume item. So what I went ahead and did is listed it on the alt account as well at the same time. That way what this is going to do is capitalize on that margin across both accounts and is essentially going to double our profit on the flip. Margin sharing across both accounts is a really important thing that you have to do when you are flipping with 2 accounts. Not only is it going to give you more buying power on that margin, it's just going to double your profits. I mean, you're basically flipping the same item twice, so it actually is a super powerful method. I'm about halfway through listing my items here, and I'm just margin checking a bunch of stuff and listing it across both accounts. As you can see, I have a ton of items listed on my alt account as well that is taking advantage of the margins that I find on my main account. And I'm putting everything at the exact same buying price. But one thing you will notice is every item on the alt account, as far as quantity goes, is not reflected the same exact way as on the main account. I am switching around the quantities here a little bit, and that is because I only have 500 mil on the alt account, while I have 1 bill on the main account. So I'm trying to balance out that cash stack as much as I can and not over leverage any flip in here, even with flipping across 2 accounts. So you still have to be very careful about how you use your leverage across both of your accounts. Another benefit of flipping on 2 accounts is that you can feel free to accept smaller margins. In this example, we're only getting about 10k on the Amulet of Torture, but I still went ahead and decided to flip it anyway. And the reason that is because instead of the 8 that I would normally be flipping on one account, now I'm flipping 16. So my total profit is going to be around 160k compared to an 80k flip, and I don't think that's too bad, honestly. You can accept smaller margins because the quantity that you are flipping is larger, making up for that smaller margin. You might have to wait a little bit longer for quantities to fill as you are filling double the quantity, but the same general rules apply across flipping both accounts as you would use on one account. So not letting items sit for too long, making sure you're on margin on everything, those are still important things to keep in mind, although it's a little bit more of a pain because if you have to adjust a margin, you have to do it across both accounts. We've had a little bit more price action, but basically what I'm doing is just moving a couple items around that are probably no longer on margin. So that's going to be the Aram's rope skirt here. Obviously looks like it has probably moved in margin a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and list those back to around their original margin across both accounts here and just wait for them to sell off, probably move into a different item after that. And once we get into a different item, we'll just keep looking for new stuff to flip. And another tip that I can put in here is if you have an extra slot on your alt account, feel free to try to search for another item to flip. I mean, you can either sell half of the quantity of an item you've already been buying, or you can just go ahead and search for more items like you would on your main account. It's really up to you and how you want to handle it. If you have an item that is not selling across both accounts, what I'd recommend doing is being a little bit more patient than you normally would across one account. The reason this is you're holding double the quantity of the item, so the loss will be double as bad if you go ahead and sell it for less than you anticipated. So I would just wait a little bit longer. Considering you have almost double the supply of the item across both accounts, it is likely that the trade will swing in your favor. Just don't get too impatient and sell it for a loss, because losses across two accounts can be devastating. So just keep that in mind. Quick update on the session, everything is going well, but I decided to knock the Abyssal Bludgeons down by like 10k each on their sell offer, as they were struggling a little bit to sell. And we are finally getting the Armadillo Crossbows off as well, and the margin on that one's not that great, but at least we're starting to sell it off. Besides that, I don't have a lot of concerns with everything we're flipping here. We've got items shared across both accounts, so we're doing great so far. And after I said that last clip, we finished up on the Abyssal Bludgeons and the Armadillo Crossbows. Very nice. The session is still underway. Now I'm starting to cycle into some things that are a bit more high volume. Now, the thing with high volume items is you have to let them sit a little bit longer when you have two accounts, as the items are going to fluctuate a little bit and the offer is not going to fill as quickly, but it's not a big deal. We'll let it sit for a while, and I might go ahead and cycle into some more expensive stuff too, kind of split it like 6 high volume items and maybe 2 expensive items at once. We'll have to see how it goes. Quick pro tip as well, if you're flipping on 2 accounts, I honestly highly recommend the Dragon Pickaxes. They're one of those flips that is going to take a while to complete, sort of like a passive flip, but honestly, the margins on these are really good, and you can flip 40 of them per account. So right now, we've got a total of 80 of them listed, and we're just letting them sit for now. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but the buying power when you are using 2 accounts is significantly more than if you had 1 account, right? Because you have 2 item limits listed on top of a margin, and it means you have more control or more influence over the margin as you are buying up more of the item. For example, let's say you go ahead and list 14 Dragon Warhammers across both of your accounts, and you start buying them up. In the short term, you're going to own 14 of those Dragon Warhammers that are in current circulation being traded back and forth, which means you have a significant control over the price movement there in the short term. Not like you're going to be able to manipulate the margin at all, but you do have a lot of the supply, so it kind of gives you a little bit of control over your margin, and in my opinion, it's more guaranteed that the flip will go your way as you own more of the supply. Thought I'd chime in as well and say, if you guys have any questions while I'm going through this guide, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I'll answer any of your questions regarding flipping on 2 accounts and just the strategies behind it, really. The way that I do flipping on 2 accounts is I try to make it pretty passive, just get some stuff listed that I can let sit for a while without having to worry too much about it. But if you wanted to do it actively, you could as well. It's just going to be a lot more effort, and you'll have to change margins around a fair bit. If you find yourself in the situation where the items on your main account are still selling, but the items on your alt account have already sold, what I recommend doing is taking the open slots and flipping a very high volume item that is going to trade extremely fast. Some examples are a shark, or you could do Zulrah scales as well. These are really high volume flips that trade in no time, and the reason you want them to be quick is because at any moment, the items could clear up on your main account, right? So you'd want to cycle back into them on your alt account. So just trade fast items in the open slots you have, make a little bit of extra profit on them while you wait for your main account to finish up. Also, another tip is if you find a margin that is really good on your main account and you have your alt account filled up with flips, cancel one of the flips and try to get in on that amazing margin. As you can see on the main account, we have an extremely good margin on the Dragonfire Shield. It's almost 100k, which is super good. So what I did was I canceled the Eternal Boot offer over on the alt account. That way I could go, oh, it didn't work right there. That way I could go over onto the alt account and list the Dragonfire Shields and try to capitalize on that. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that does work for us, but just a pro tip again, the management across 2 accounts can be tricky sometimes, but always prioritize profit over anything else. We have been flipping for a while, and I am going to start wrapping up this session, so I'm going to start putting sell offers in for everything that we have so far, and then we're going to do a comparison of the profits, how much I would have made if I only flipped on one account, and how much I made flipping on 2 accounts. And there we go, basically wrapped up on the session. We just haven't sold all the Diamond Dragon Balls E, but we're going to calculate the profit either way. We had 4.1 mil made on the main account in about an hour and 46 minutes of some casual flipping. But since we also were flipping on the alt account as well, we made an additional 2.4 million GP on top of that. As you can see, if you are flipping on 2 accounts, you're obviously going to be more profitable, even though you had to pay for the bond cost, so you just have to make sure you make up for that over the 14 days that you have your alt account bonded. I hope this guide gave you some insight into flipping on 2 accounts. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to drop a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.